Welcome in to another episode, a Friday version of Betting the Pitch. I guess that's not a surprise. It happens all the time. I'm your host, the real underscore G Warner, and we're going through the European soccer, the top European soccer leagues, top five, big five, not the animals on safari, but the big five European soccer leagues, the biggest animals out there in the soccer landscape. Thank you for watching, whether you're on Twitter / StreamYard. I'm not sure how well that's working lately, but c'est la vie. Twitter changes everything. And who knows what's going to happen when Elon Musk finally finishes his purchase. Whether you're watching or, listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I appreciate that. Please like, subscribe, give 5 stars, do that sort of stuff. Or if you're on YouTube, subscribe there. That'd be really nice. I think I need like 9 million more followers to actually start doing anything on YouTube. But power user, here I come. Without further ado, I'm going to go through each of, I guess there is some further ado. I'm going to go through each of the top 5 European soccer leagues. I'm going to give a best bet from each and an ultimate best bet end of show. So stick with us. If you need to fast forward to the end, I guess that's your prerogative, but stick with me. I'm going to try to give something interesting on all of these matchups. We'll start in the Premier League with Bournemouth hosting Leicester, Saturday matchup. And I don't really understand where Leicester goes off being a quarter goal favorite here. With all the juice as well. They had a good win, finally the first of the year, but they're against Nottingham Forest, who might be the worst team in Premier League at this point. Certainly the least cohesive team, considering they changed the entire roster, it feels like, in the transfer window, and even didn't do some of that work early when they should have. I don't really understand the newly promoted side spending all their cash, but also doing a lot of it towards the end of the transfer window instead of doing it early. Do your work early and then reap the benefits, I think would be the plan. But anyway, Bournemouth are currently a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice on the away team. So potentially going to close a half a goal favorite to a Leicester team that has been the worst team in the Premier League until that win this past weekend, which on Monday night. So even shorter turnaround than you'd even expect. Plus Leicester should have been 1-0 down if Taiwo Awoniyi hadn't hit the post. And that changes that matchup completely. I don't think Leicester, clearly on the road, they won't have the crowd backing them up. And as a quarter goal favorite, I don't agree. Even worse when this moves to half a goal favorite before kickoff. Next, we'll go to Newcastle hosting Brentford. Newcastle, a 3/4 goal favorite. And I'm trying to figure out what to do with Newcastle because I still don't believe in their offense. It seems to me, though, it is capable if Callum Wilson is in there. And their defense under Eddie Howe somehow has been dominant. Maybe even great, you could say. And I think that's what really took them from a relegation candidate from last season to being mid-table and looks pretty safe this year, maybe even potentially targeting European berths. And I got to say, the Brentford second season syndrome feel like it's been kicking in. Their goal scoring doesn't really seem to be there. They seem to need a lot of chances, a lot of XG in order to actually get the ball in the net. That's not a great thing, especially when their defense has been a lot easier to defend a lot easier to attack this season. I'm less interested in Brentford, though. Getting 3/4 of a goal at Newcastle seems pretty high considering how little I trust the Newcastle offense. I think at +1, I will probably play Brentford. That I just don't know that Newcastle can be relied upon to score twice and keep a clean sheet. At the current 3/4, I lean Brentford. Most of the juices, or all the juice right now, is on Brentford, so maybe this falls back to a half. I think it'll stick here, and then I got to decide if it's worth the gamble or not. Chelsea hosts Wolves in a battle of two teams that have sacked managers this season. Chelsea they're 1.25 goal favorite. And I think there's still a lot to be understood about what this team is going to be under Graham Potter. I feel like I don't really know who they are because he did a lot with a lot less at Brighton. But it's a completely different system that he's playing versus what Thomas Tuchel is playing. I think Tuchel is having success on the European stage. Clearly, as they won Champions League a couple seasons back in Lisboa. But ultimately, I think the problem is him in a locker room alienating players and feels like management everywhere he goes. On the other side, Wolves just fired Bruno Lage, which should have probably happened a long time ago, but they got off to a ridiculous start in the Premier League based on scoring almost no goals a game. Like they'd get one and that'd be enough to win, or they keep a clean sheet. And that defense has not been as good this year. There's clearly some financial problems in Wolves, and that's why Nuno Espirito Santo ended up kind of falling from grace. Whether he's a great manager or not, I think that's yet to be seen, or slash we probably know he's not. But Wolves, they sold a lot of players off that were in their team, and they tried to bring on a lot of attackers to kind of solve their offensive problem. I don't think that was something that you can solve just by bringing in Valencia's best creator, because he doesn't really create for others. Casal Guedes is essentially, he's a great Portuguese player, great for the national team, but he's like a set piece, free kick type of guy, doesn't do a lot in the run of play. And Wolves just, I think, are so far away from having a meaningful and useful offense that I can't back them at 1.25 goal underdog on the road at Chelsea, where it's pretty tough to play from time to time. I don't believe in the Chelsea offense. I feel like above a goal, I certainly lean to Wolves, but I'm not sure it'll be enough for me to play because I really don't know what their situation is and what their new manager is going to want to do. Manchester City then hosts Southampton. Currently, Man City, a 2.5 goal favorite. Monster number, and I don't really know if anyone in their right mind wants to fade Erling Haaland at this point. He's healthy as far as I can see. Would expect he starts here, though they probably don't need him. Certainly don't need 90 minutes of him. Southampton, they're going to play a higher line because Ralph Hasenhüttl, that's what he does. I do like the buys that they've made, the players they've sold on or moved on, I think has been good. Watching Jan Bednarek move is, I think, a great move. For Southampton, it also paved the way for them to bring in Kotchap from Bochum in Germany, and I feel like their future is bright, as it always is. But I think this is a really tough matchup for them, and I don't know that even 3 goals is enough for me. Brighton then hosts Tottenham in the nightcap on Saturday. Looked like, De Zerbi, I know plenty of him and his days at Sassuolo, where he was all out attack and kind of seen the same way at Shakhtar Donetsk. I'm not really sure his circumstance of why he left there, besides the war that started by Russia, the war of Russia and aggression. Hopefully that's not too political. But Tottenham, they've been really disappointing. Didn't really do anything in Champions League midweek. Hard to see a team that is going to give possession being a favorite, but ultimately, the line is pick 'em as we speak. More juice on Tottenham, as I think there should be, and I think there's a decent chance that Tottenham close a quarter goal favorite. And if they do, I think I'll be on Brighton because they're going to control the ball. I think they're going to play the same way that Graham Potter had trained them to, and we'll see how long it takes for his influence to wear off. I do think De Zerbi wants to be more attacking, but I think he knows that Brighton are rolling, and I don't think it's a great idea for him to change too much. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Seems to me that De Zerbi was not too crazy about changing things, though there was a huge high six goal total in his last match against Liverpool last weekend. Not much for me to do at Pick'em, but if Brighton moves to an underdog, I'm interested. Moving next to Sunday for West Ham hosting Fulham. West Ham a 3/4 goal favorite, and I don't really know where that comes from. Fulham got, they got smashed last weekend, I believe, by Newcastle at home, and the problem was they had a red card in the 8th minute. Whether that was a good call, the red card, I'm not certain, but it was called and upheld, and it seemed like the Fulham manager was really not enjoying himself. I'll put it that way. With that said, Fulham getting 3/4 of goal is a lot because West Ham have to win by more than a goal to cover the spread. I don't really believe that that's something they have in their wheelhouse. Certainly could win by 1, but I feel like it's going to be a low-scoring game. And Fulham have been aggressive and certainly on the front foot a lot more than I was expecting coming into the year. It's worked out very well for them so far. If you separate the last match out, but it's hard when you play 82 minutes of regular time without down a man. And, it is what it is, but not really in love with that call and kind of how that transpired. But Fulham's been really competitive. They played way above expectations so far. And I feel like I don't see a reason that'll stop. So I like Fulham getting that 3/4. Next we go Crystal Palace hosting Leeds. Crystal Palace, an awesome home team, a pretty shaky road team. And they're a quarter goal favorite at home with all the juice, potentially climbing to half of a goal. From where I sit, I'm very interested in Leeds. I think Crystal Palace, as I just said, they're a great home team, but ultimately they, I don't really know what to say about them because as a favorite, I want to go against them because I don't really know where the goals come from. They had a really tough loss last weekend to Chelsea. Took a 1-0 lead, gave up a tough goal and a great shot from Aubameyang, and then at the death, right as the 90-minute mark was hit, former Crystal Palace player, loanee, who went back to Chelsea, Conor Gallagher, made a great, beautiful shot from outside the box. I think Crystal Palace will probably be pretty motivated from that result. Leeds, on the other hand, Jesse Marsch was sent off a couple of matches ago and was up in the crowd, and they fought pretty hard, sitting there down a man with a red card themselves. Ridiculous one for Sinisterra, but he won't be available for this match, and that's probably good because he needs to work on his intelligence, to say the least. At a quarter, I feel like I'm not as interested in Leeds, but as this moves to a half, it looks like it's trending there. I will look to back Leeds getting 1/2 of a goal. Arsenal then hosts Liverpool. Arsenal pick 'em right now. And as Mackenzie Rivers and I went through on the pregame podcast last night, Arsenal are about as highly priced as they can be, top of the table. And Liverpool are about as cheap as they can be based on how poorly they've started the season. I pick them. There's not much for me to do here. I lean Arsenal and would like for them to be an underdog. Maybe on the money line, if they're plus money, that does interest me a little bit. But ultimately, when I play the sport, I want to draw to at least win me half a wager, and I'm not sure it'll do that. Next, we'll go Everton hosting Manchester United. Currently, Everton a half a goal underdog at home. Manchester United reeling off that embarrassing loss across the town to Manchester United, to Manchester City, excuse me. Gave up a ton of goals. But I feel like at this point, the bounce backs and the extra value that's garnered from having your last match being embarrassment against Manchester City might put them in a little bit better position. I do think the Everton crowd, though, is very legit, and getting half of a goal, a draw wins a full bet. All the juices on Everton right now. I think at a quarter, I'm not so interested and probably happy to let that one to skip on that one. At a half, I do like Everton right now. And as everyone knows, the yawns are back. Unfortunately, I can't help it. Late night last night. Move to Monday, last matchup of the weekend. And I guess the start of next week is Nottingham Forest hosting Aston Villa. Currently, Forest a quarter goal underdog at home off what was a great performance, great start that could have been up 1-0 if Awoniyi would have finished. And he didn't, and then the floodgates opened. They gave up some crazy goals off low XG, but it was still pretty disappointing. And the Nottingham Forest team is starting to look like one that is a little bit out of their element. All the players they brought in, I think they've done too much. It doesn't seem like there's enough of a core or spine in place. So that worries me. I will say Aston Villa as a road favorite is something I want to bet against as often as possible. Worked very well in the opener at Bournemouth, another newly promoted side that Aston Villa fell behind early and lost 2-0. Certainly leaned to Forest, and it would take some cojones to grab Nottingham Forest here. But I like that quarter. Certainly would like it to be a little bit higher. For best bets in England, very interested in Bournemouth for sure. I like Brentford. Probably skipping Wolves, Southampton, and not much to do with Brighton at Pick'em. Like Fulham getting a 3/4. Like Leeds would like a more at a half. Nothing to do in the Liverpool match. Everton are interesting, but I certainly want to look into that one and see what their lineup looks like. And then ultimately Nottingham Forest is also of interest too at a quarter of a goal on Monday. I'll pick Bournemouth plus a quarter right now. Might close 1/2, but I'll grade it as a quarter for my best bet in England. Next, we'll move to the Spanish La Liga. We do have a Friday match here. Osasuna hosting Valencia. Currently, Osasuna a quarter goal favorite. All the juice on Valencia on the road. And I think this speaks to the clubs and the differences between the two. Valencia are talented. They are growing for the future. They're young. Osasuna are off to a great start. It really helped from an easy schedule early, but that was a big deal, I think. I don't know that I necessarily believe in Osasuna and their start and them continuing it, but they got a great draw at Real Madrid. I think as a favorite, they're a team I'd like to go against. It's probably only going to be a favorite at home or maybe on the road at the bottom of the league, like Elche or something like that. I don't really have interest at Valencia. It's a very expensive quarter right now, and I feel like I don't trust them, even though everyone's wild for Edinson Cavani coming into the team. Moving to Saturday, Almeria hosting Rayo Vallecano, currently a pick'em. All the juice on Rayo Vallecano, and it looks like they'll probably move up to a quarter goal favorite. I'm not a believer in Rayo. They had a crazy win at the death against Elche, coming back, turning the game around. Brutal for Elche and their backers, especially because I think that costs a lot of people some money. Almeria, on the other hand, they just haven't been. They got off to a great start, but then unfortunately sold their striker, talisman, guy that did everything for them offensively. They scored. It's really hard to trust them to score. Unfortunately, you kind of need to do that in soccer to win matches and win points. The nice part is Rayo Vallecano are a team that lives on a counterattack, and I don't know that necessarily they're going to have a lot of opportunities. I feel like Almeria will be a little bit more on the front foot at home than they would be on the road, but I just don't really believe in Rayo completely. I think that they're a better team and probably deserve to be favored, but that doesn't mean I don't like Almeria if this moves to a quarter. Next, we have Atletico Madrid hosting Girona with an actual G. Sorry, Girona. Atleti, a 1-goal favorite with all the juice, coming off a really disappointing European performance. And ultimately, I guess they were not so bad in the league last week on their return from the international break. But Girona, they scored a ton of goals, but still lost to Real Sociedad and in very disappointing fashion. When you score 3, you probably expect to get 3 points, but it didn't work out. I do like anyone going against Atleti. I do think there's a significant difference in quality and talent between Atleti and Girona. I'm curious about Christian Stuani, who had a heart problem, and seeing if he's going to be. I think he was on the bench for the last matchup. I don't know if he's going to be fit enough to start, but he's pretty important to them. Though, to be fair, was not starting all the matches this season. I think it's about how badly you want to go against Atleti here. Lean to Girona getting a +1. Sevilla then hosts Athletic Club, and for the first time that I can remember, Sevilla are underdogs at home to a team that's not Barcelona or Real Madrid. Currently, Sevilla a quarter-goal underdog at home, all the juice. So maybe this falls down to pick them. But I was really hoping to find any sort of price on Athletic Club, either at a quarter, which is unlikely, or maybe at a pick 'em with the odds on their side. But ultimately, I think Athletic Club, they've been off to a great start. Their new manager, Valverde, has done a lot to really engage the Williams brothers, who look like they would never be able to finish anything, never mind a meal, never mind a goal. But they've been great. Maybe that's something that doesn't continue forever because they've struggled so long with finishing. But Athletic Club have always been a team about defense, counterattacks, using their pace, and then getting in position to score, just not really converting at a high rate. If they can convert, they're a scary team that can give anyone problems. Sevilla look like an absolute dumpster fire. And they got to play Champions League midweek, which zaps their legs, where Athletic Club can rest and probably have been in Sevilla longer than Sevilla have this week. So not much for me to do there. I think Sevilla are just a no touch, and really I hope that they're going to be favored, but I'm not even sure they would be against the bottom of the league. Who knows when Julen Lopetegui will be relieved of his duties or just quit, because he's certainly not going to live up to the expectations they have there, and the whistles I'm sure have already started. Getafe then host Real Madrid in the nightcap on Saturday. Getafe, a 1.25-goal underdog at home. All the juice too. I guess that's not a lot of respect for Real Madrid, or maybe people aren't expecting Karim Benzema to play another match, considering he's recently returned from injury. I don't think Getafe are good enough for me to back them. They also have huge red card risk because they play so physically, and that's scary enough, especially against a Real Madrid team that just grind you down and end up scoring 2 goals in the last 15 minutes. It seems like every match. Moving to Sunday, Real Valladolid hosting Real Betis. Currently, Valladolid a quarter-goal underdog at home with all the juice. And the reason for that is Betis has been all over the place. 2 straight road matches, a loss to Celta de Vigo, and down to 10 men, and then had to go to Roma. So pretty tough situation there. Real Valladolid, though, have had plenty of problems themselves, being in good positions, but finishing has been a big issue for them. I do like Real Valladolid. I feel like they've been better than they've deserved in points, and I think that's pretty much inarguable. And I really loved them a couple seasons ago before they went down to the Segunda División. But ultimately, Real Betis going on the road as a favorite is something that I'd like to go against, with potentially very weary legs now, and legs that will only get more weary as we move forward. Valladolid getting a quarter is of interest, but it's very expensive as we speak. Next, we move to Cadiz hosting Espanyol. Currently a pick 'em with all the juice on Espanyol on the road. Maybe this climbs to a quarter. And there's some big problems with Espanyol, I got to say. Their goalkeeping situation, I cannot understand why Alvaro Fernandez is still in the net. He makes some of the worst decisions, including costing his team 3 points. And Espanyol don't look like they're clearly safe by any means this season. Misjudged and let a ball that was flying towards his goal, clearly too close because it went in the net, and he let it go right in the top corner. It was a lucky shot from Valencia, certainly, but he makes big mistake after big mistake every week. And I do trust the manager, but it makes me feel like there's no other options for him if he's sticking with Alvaro in there. So should be a new goalkeeper in there. If there isn't, and Espanyol closed a favorite here at 1/4, I think I'll be playing Cadiz, even though I really don't love them, I got to say. Next, we'll move to Real Sociedad hosting Villarreal, currently a pick'em also. Sociedad with almost all the juice right now at home, and the Real Arena should be wild. The Churi Ordine should be playing really great because Villarreal have been struggling lately. They had got off to a great start, big win at Atleti, were favored at Real Betis and didn't come through. I think it's part of their issue with Gerard Moreno getting hurt. It happened last year, and their offense went to zilch basically. And they've been in matches certainly, and they've been controlling things, but not getting a win against Sevilla was bad. A goalless draw last time out, I think, against Getafe, also bad. And they don't have a home court or home field advantage, home pitch advantage, because they're playing their matches while it's under construction. They're playing someone else. I think ultimately Real Sociedad are the better team right now at home, especially when you consider that. I do have some interest in Villarreal if they move to a quarter, because I think defensively they can really stymie Villarreal. Stymie Real Sociedad. Unai Emery has proven he can do it in Champions League. I'm sure he can do it at the Real Arena. But ultimately, until he gets to a quarter, I'm not interested. And even then, it might not be enough. Barcelona then hosts Celta de Vigo in the Sunday nightcap. Barca, a 1.5 goal favorite, off a pretty disappointing result midweek at Inter, but could have been expected. Inter finally got a good performance in, and they got very fortunate with a lot of VAR decisions going their way. And I'm sure that made every Kula a very, very happy person on the eastern coast of Spain. Anyway, Celta de Vigo, they got a good win, and I've been really struggling because I've been losing when I back them, but feeling good about backing them, and then betting against them and feeling good. They had one real good opportunity last week with Iago Aspas on the bench with a stomach ailment of some sort, maybe food poisoning. Anyway, they got an outside the box worldie, hard to defend those, and kind of you just tip your cap to those. So that sucked because it cost me a unit. But ultimately, I don't know that I want to play Celta de Vigo on the road at Barca, because they're going to give a ton of space to Barcelona, and I think that's going to put them in a lot of tough positions. Their defense is not very good and worries me in many, many different facets. So I'm going to probably skip this one, even though it's a big number on Celta de Vigo, who certainly can score the goals. And Monday, we move to Elche hosting Mallorca, currently a pick'em with all the juice on the roads team, Mallorca. I don't love back in Elche. I do like that they've been changing their formation at the back, or at least with a new manager, they've been going away from their ridiculously slow center back combination. I don't believe in Mallorca. They're simply a long balls or a cross in the box to Marichi's head offense. Elche, I think, do have some big, slow, but big defenders that can try to defend that and cause problems there. I also like the entrant of Fernandez from Newcastle, who came in. He hasn't been great to start, but interviewed after the really tough loss that they took at the end of the last match. So I feel like there's some belief if he's answering post-game questions, and he's probably in that team going forward. I think it's an important statement for Elche to make under the new manager. Ultimately, Elche, if they move to a quarter goal underdog, Mallorca plays too defensively for them to be a road favorite, I think, to anybody really. Certainly it's the bottom of the barrel when you're going to Elche, but I lean that way definitely on Monday. Moving to Italy, we'll go Sassuolo hosting Inter on Saturday morning. Inter off a great win, and I feel like it's reflected in this number. I don't have where this one was earlier in the week, but Inter Milan currently a 3/4 goal favorite on the road at Sassuolo. Sassuolo have done a lot of business. They've got a lot younger. I mean, it's what they do: rinse, wash, repeat. Add offensive attacking players, try to survive defensively. That's a scary combination against a team like Inter, who have so much at their disposal. But ultimately, Inter are a great team that have been playing really poorly this year. I like Sassuolo getting 3/4 of a goal at home. I think at +1, I'm in. And I just realized I forgot to do the best bet of Spain, so I'll do that right now before going through the rest of Italy. So we'll touch on Inter, just a reminder in a second. My bad. So no interest in Valencia today. Almeria is an underdog I like if they move to a quarter tomorrow. I like Girona a little bit. I don't like Sevilla. Do not like Getafe. I like Valladolid at home. I like Cadiz if they move to a quarter. Like Villarreal a little bit if they move to a quarter, but that's certainly not based on how they've been playing lately. Celta de Vigo is not worth it, I don't think. And Elche, if they move to a quarter, I like it. Elche are not there yet, so I probably am going to avoid that one for the moment. Man, not a lot of choices because a lot of these games are at pick'em. I'll go with Real Valladolid as a quarter goal underdog at home to Real Betis. I think they're going to be in a much better legs advantage and an early start on Sunday. It's a really tough turnaround from a Sunday trip to Rome for Real Betis. So Valladolid will be my at plus 1/4 will be my best bet from Spain. And then we'll move, I guess, to recap, and Bournemouth I made as my best bet from England at plus 1/4. So two home dogs plus a quarter are the best bets so far. Back to Italy. So Sassuolo I like at 3/4. Would love them at a full goal of insurance. Next we'll move to AC Milan against Juventus, the biggest matchup of the week. Should be a great one. AC Milan currently a quarter goal favorite at home with almost all the juice right now too. At a half of a goal, I think I'm more interested in Juve, and we'll look to that to back them. They are, I mean, they're a team that's growing, grinding, all those sort of things. They have a long way to go till we can trust them, but ultimately, I think AC Milan are a really good team. They're in the Scudetto race for sure, but it's going to be a combination of AC Milan, Inter, Juventus. I mean, seeing the Udinese start to the year and also Atalanta, who have no European soccer to deal with this year, has been a big deal. I do think that there's not that big of a gap, though, between AC Milan and Juve. AC Milan, last year's Scudetto winners. Bologna then hosts Sampdoria. Currently, Bologna a half a goal favorite. All the juice on Sampdoria, and it feels like too big of a number because I don't know where the offense has come from besides Marko Arnautovic, which was enough for them last season, but it got Sinisa Mihajlovic fired or sacked this season because they haven't been able to do anything offensively for a while. He was more of the counter pressing and create offense through your defense type of style. The new manager, Thiago Motta, is a very offensive minded manager, formerly of Spezia, and I haven't really seen that take just yet. Sampdoria are really scary to back, probably one of the worst teams in this league, but don't have they have a lot more esteem than they should. But half of a goal underdog means a draw on the road will cover and pay full bet. And I don't think it's impossible for Sampdoria to win here. Though I think it's probably a draw as best case scenario. Maybe that plus 260 on a draw looks decent, but I think I'd rather just take the half and pay the juice and hope that was a winner if they do actually win this match. So I'm not that convinced at Bologna. Moving to Sunday, Torino hosting Empoli. Currently Torino a 3/4 goal favorite. Empoli, I feel like, I mean, what a brutal, crazy ending to their match with AC Milan last weekend. Went behind late, tied it up, and then conceded 2 goals. So there's I think 3 goals in the last 10 minutes, or excuse me, in the last 4 goals in the last 10 minutes and 3 goals in stoppage time. And they didn't even cover or push a +1. Brutal. Probably the bad beat of the week if you're listening to Scott Van Pelt. I don't think he does soccer though. So anyway, anywho, Empoli, I like at 3/4 of a goal. I don't know where Torino's offense is good enough to be given that type of number. At +1, I'm in on Empoli definitely, but until it gets there, I still lean Empoli. I like that 3/4. Monza then hosting Spezia. Currently Monza a half a goal underdog, or excuse me, a half a goal favorite. So used to Monza being an underdog, I guess that's it's tough to say that's how. I mean, tough to see Monza as a half a goal favorite, and so I lean to Spezia. I feel like they are. I mean, it's tough to back Spezia because ultimately they're coming from Thiago Motta, I just mentioned, an all-out attacking manager, and it kept them in the league 2 seasons when I don't think it was ever expected they'd stay in for 1. New manager Luca Gotti is more of a defensive guy who had been at Udinese somewhat recently. Seemed like a class act. When he got sacked, he took on a page ad in the newspaper thanking everybody. So that's cool. But unfortunately, that doesn't win you bets. So I guess I'll leave that to the side. Monza is a half a goal favorite coming off a good performance against Sampdoria, but that's drags the league just like Monza are. I don't see that big of a difference between Monza and Spezia. So I like Spezia getting a half. Salernitana, then a quarter goal favorite to Verona at home. Salernitana, excuse me, all the juice is on Verona on the roads. This one's looking like it's going to fall down to Pick'em. At Pick'em, not much for me to do. I feel like Verona, I mean, had a brutal loss at the death. I mean, a lot of at the death losses last weekend. Some got me, some didn't, fortunately, because it was a tough weekend last weekend, I'll admit. I do like Verona getting a quarter, though it's very expensive, and I can't imagine that'll be there by the time this game kicks off. If it does, I like Verona because I feel like they've been getting more than the market has really believed in them. Albeit they struggled to close out that match against Udinese. They also took a 1-0 lead and lost 2-1, so that's tough. Certainly lost money for everyone who backed Verona last week or on Monday. Quicker turnaround, certainly less time to rest, but ultimately I lean to them getting a quarter because Salernitana, I feel like they played really well against Sampdoria one time with some new additions, but it's kind of cooled off since then. Udinese then hosting Atalanta. Big battle at the top of Serie A. I'm not sure anyone had that, and we'll see if this team stay at the top. But Udinese's new manager has been awesome, and Atalanta, I feel like they're really enjoying a renaissance now that they don't have European play to distract them. Anyway, pick them here. Most of the juice on Udinese, not all of it. If any one of these teams become an underdog, I like them getting a quarter, but I don't think that'll happen. Cremonese then hosting Napoli. Currently, Cremonese a 1.25 underdog at home. Feels short for me. Ultimately at home, big price on anybody to lose by a goal at home when you need to get 3 points and to stay in the league. But Cremonese have not looked on the level of the rest of Serie A, and Napoli might be the biggest surprise in all of European football, not just Serie A. Roma then hosting Lecce. Currently, Roma a 1.5 goal favorite. All the juice on Lecce on the road. I like Lecce here. I think they've been a lot better than their point total will show. Unfortunately, that's something they have to fix and will cause them problems towards down the stretch of the season. Roma are they had a lot of expectations coming into the season and certainly are very talented, but I have some questions about them. They're also trying to battle, had a really tough match midweek with Real Betis and coming off a victory against Inter Milan the match day before, I guess last weekend. So Inter Milan, Inter Real Betis in two different competitions. I mean, with travel involved, I think they're on the road at Inter. Huge win. They came back from behind there, but that's a really tough thing to see this team get up 3 times in a row. So I like Lecce to hang with this number, especially at 1.5. And then moving to Monday, Fiorentina hosting Lazio, currently a pick'em. All the juice on Fiorentina at home. And I want to play Lazio because I don't believe Fiorentina can score, and I know that Lazio can. Might be a shootout, which does worry me, only getting a quarter potentially if this number climbs a little bit. But I do like Lazio. I think that they are the better team. And like I said, I trust them to score. So best bets in England, we had 1/4 goal on home dog. Bournemouth in Spain, 1/4 goal on home dog. Real Valladolid in Italy. So that's what I'm interested in, but I think I want one, at least not ready to call it a best bet on for the entire Italian league. I do like Juve, but I want Juventus to get to 1/2 goal. They're not there yet. Bologna, I'd like to fade with Sampdoria, though Sampdoria are one of the worst in the league, and I'm trying not to bet bad teams as much this year. Sampdoria getting 1/2 is of interest. I like Empoli getting 3/4. Would love for them to get a full +1. Not there yet. Like Spezia getting 1/2 from Monza. I don't think these teams are that different. And I don't think home field is worth that much for Monza. Verona getting 1/4 from Salernitana. I like, but this one's probably headed towards pick'em. And I got it, but maybe not, because the market has really not enjoyed Verona so far this season. Nothing to do with Udinese right now at pick'em. Don't like Cremonese. I do like Lecce, and I like the setup for them getting 1.5. And since Lazio aren't yet at 1/4, I'm going to go with Lecce plus 1.5 as my best bet from Italy. Next, we'll move to the German Bundesliga, and we'll start with a Friday match. Hoffenheim hosting Werder Bremen. Currently, Hoffenheim a 1/2 goal favorite, and that's way shorter than I was expecting. Played pretty well at Hertha Berlin, ended up drawing last weekend, but that wasn't really necessarily enough. I think there's higher expectations for Hoffenheim, but I think a 1/2 goal in a venue where Hoffenheim have had a lot of success over the years, maybe not even with huge crowd support. I just feel like they score a ton of goals at home. I feel like Werder Bremen only 1/2 is not worth it, but that certainly market is certainly back in Werder Bremen, keeping this number as low as it is, unless there's some huge injury or COVID outbreak at Hoffenheim, which I don't think that exists anymore. Moving to Saturday, Leverkusen hosting Schalke. Currently, Leverkusen a 1.25 goal favorite at home with a new manager, I believe. We'll see what that means. I mean, they've just been unable to score goals. Their defense isn't good enough when they're not scoring a lot to kind of counterbalance. I don't really believe in Schalke hanging around, though. As a big underdog, I guess I should, because they can certainly cause some problems. They've been good at scoring late goals this season in the Bundesliga. They don't have the European match where Leverkusen had to go to Porto in Portugal, which is a trip, certainly not the easiest one out there. Definitely involves some flights. So I like Schalke getting 1.25, and I feel like Leverkusen are in a tough spot, and it's been a really tough year for them so far. Augsburg then hosts Wolfsburg. Augsburg a 1/4 goal underdog at home with all the juice. Augsburg, they never get any respect for the marketplace. They beat Bayern every year, but it doesn't seem to matter. They don't get any respect. And Wolfsburg, got a crazy winner. Got really, really fortunate. Some really bad goalkeeping from their opponent, Stuttgart, last weekend. I don't necessarily believe in that, but Wolfsburg as a quarter goal underdog is something I want to go against because I don't really like them offensively, and I feel like it's going to be a really tough situation for them on the road in an environment that should be pretty pumped up based on how well Augsburg performed in that victory against Bayern Munchen. So I like Augsburg here. I feel like they've, as a home dog, they might not close one though, because it's certainly looking like they're going to trend down to pick them. Next, we have Mainz hosting RB Leipzig. Currently, Mainz a quarter goal underdog at home with all the juice. Mainz are definitely used to be loved by the marketplace. I'm not so sure that they are here. Leipzig are a really good home team, but I've struggled on the road in all competitions. Struggled a lot in Champions League so far this season. Mainz are going to be a really tough team. They're going to beat Leipzig up. I'm just not sure that I really trust Mainz to score with Leipzig, because Leipzig have a lot of attacking talent, attacking players. Mainz really don't. I think I like the home dog here because I always like home dogs, but ultimately I think that's a scenario that I'll probably end up passing upon unless there's some big change or absentees from Leipzig's tough match midweek in Champions League. Bochum then hosting Eintracht Frankfurt. Currently, Bochum a half a goal underdog at home. What I don't really know necessarily what I feel about Bochum at this point. I mean, I loved them maybe I do know how I feel. I loved them last year. They were a great money making side. They then lost all their loanees because no one wanted them to stay with Bochum, and they went from being a competitive team to being the lowest salary payroll value of a squad in the Bundesliga by like double. They're worth half as much as the other lowest team, it seems. And then their manager's gone. His contract was up, and they were struggling to really. I think he was asking for support. He wasn't getting it. They brought in a new technical director, and he left. So that's not a great situation to be in. Eintracht Frankfurt, on the other hand, like somehow won the Europa League despite a really poor Bundesliga campaign last year, and they've been having to struggle in Champions League, playing and using a lot of their energy there, and now have to go to Bochum, a really tough place to play, and have to win this match based on the spread because they're a half goal favorite. I like Bochum. I'm trying to separate their performances from last year and kind of recognize who they are this year, but I do think this is a great spot to buy them, and a draw wins you a full bet. So I do like that half a goal number on Bochum at home. Borussia Dortmund then host Bayern Munchen, and the big matchup, the Der Klassiker, big match over the weekend. And this is always a story of Dortmund are considered the best challenger of Bayern Munchen, but ultimately they unfortunately don't really succeed in that role. They've moved up from a quarter goal underdog to a full goal underdog at home, and the crowd will be nuts. Dortmund probably won't try to fight as many Schalke fans like they did when I was there. But Bayern, they've shown some problems so far this year and have been struggling at times. I think from where I sit, certainly lean to that +1, that full goal of insurance on Dortmund. I do worry that if trailing late, there's a big risk that there's a big end of game backdoor cover or front door cover from Bayern scoring a late goal against an empty goalie or something. If the Dortmund keeper moves up and tries to get in on a corner kick or something like that. Been the victim of that before and don't love it. So I think I'm probably staying on the sidelines, but I didn't really expect Dortmund to move to that full goal underdog. So that makes me more interested. Moving to Sunday, Borussia Mönchengladbach, a half a goal favorite to Cologne. Cologne had to play on the road, or had to play in the Europa Conference League this year, and that's going to zap their legs a bit. Though they've been getting a fair amount of respect, I think, from odds makers. Been playing well, getting results, and that matters. Borussia Mönchengladbach, on the other hand, are a really strong team that had a really bad year last year. Changed managers. Daniel Farke came in from Norwich City and has really put them back to being the counterattacking side that had a lot of success and ended up getting, I think, through to the group stage of the Champions League, despite being in the group of death just a couple of years ago under Marco Rose. I don't know that I necessarily trust Gladbach as this big of a favorite, where a draw will win me a full wager. It certainly makes me want to lean Cologne or lean to Cologne, but I want to make sure what Cologne have in that starting lineup, because I feel like there's big rotation risk, and there's not a ton of talent in the goal scoring capacity, which you really need if you're going to Gladbach on the road. I guess goalless could pay off, but I think you want to trust Cologne to score. And I'm not sure that I believe in Tigges or in Florian Dietz as their strike I guess, but those are their options, and I lean their way anyway. Hertha Berlin then hosting Freiburg. Currently, Hertha a quarter goal underdog at home, and they can't get wins. Unfortunately, they don't need to here. A draw wins half a bet, so that means something. Freiburg had to play in Europa League midweek. That's not great, but where I sit with Hertha, they have a really awful defense. It's really slow. It makes really bad mistakes. Freiburg are going to test them, and that's a scary thing. I mean, you can certainly argue that tired legs, though Freiburg are certainly built on a deep squad that rotates all the time. So I feel like they're kind of built for European competitions and kind of balancing that load. They're also top of the table in the Bundesliga, which is saying something. I lean to the home dog, though. I love the rest advantage, and I think Hertha have been playing really tough. And I like their new manager. I just wish they had better center backs. Ultimately, cast off Marc-Oliver Kemp from Stuttgart, and then Juranovic, who just either seems young or just seems hopeless and is ridiculous with his tackle attempts in the box. And I feel like he'll give a penalty in this one, and that might be too much for Hertha to overcome. Certainly, I think 1 goal is the maximum for Hertha. So lean to that under 2 3/4. So I feel like that's a big number. Stuttgart then hosts Union Berlin. The nightcap on Sunday. Stuttgart are pick 'em with all the juice right now, which is saying something considering Union's at top of the table and Stuttgart can't win. I think there's some big questions about Union, how they're balancing the two competitions, but from where I sit, Union are nothing, and if they move to a quarter, I will like them even more. Going through the best bets from the top leagues, we have Bournemouth in the English Premier League getting a quarter, Valladolid getting a quarter in Spanish La Liga, Lecce getting a goal and a half on the road at Roma in Italian Serie A, and in Germany, I don't think Werder Bremen is too short. I like Schalke getting more than a goal. I like Augsburg at home because I don't believe in Wolfsburg. Mainz, I think I will skip. Bochum, I like at home, but I need to really think about that one a lot more than doing it live on this podcast. I like Dortmund getting +1, but scary fading Bayern with the best bet, to say the least. I like Köln getting a half, but I want to see what that lineup looks like at Gladbach. Hertha Berlin getting a quarter, especially to see if Freiburg have to rotate some players because they're trying to stay as full and intact as they can as this long season just underway. And then Union are not yet at a quarter. So I'm going to go with best bet in Germany. I will take Augsburg getting a quarter of a goal at home from Wolfsburg. Might be a goalless draw there, which always favors that under or the underdog. And last but not least, I'll move to Ligue 1. We have a Friday match, Lyon hosting Toulouse. Currently Lyon a goal and a quarter favorite. And there's not probably a lot of defense going to get played in this one. And that makes the 1 1/4 seem less valuable. Over under 3.5 right now. I do like Toulouse, though, getting a goal and a quarter. And I feel like they have looked really good as the Ligue 2 champions from last season, have translated really well to Ligue 1. And I think that they can give Lyon all that Lyon want. There's probably some goals scored in this one, but 2-1 final does pay you half a bet on Toulouse, and Lyon's defense might even give up more than that. Moving to Saturday, Marseille hosts Ajaccio. Currently, Marseille, a 1.5 goal favorite, big number. And I don't know that I really trust Marseille to perform at that level right now. Had a good performance in Champions League midweek, but that was a lot due to ridiculous goalkeeping. And I think Ajaccio are a team I can't really trust to score, so I don't want to back them going to Le Orange Velodrome. Nightcap on Saturday is Reims hosting PSG. Reims getting a goal and a quarter, which is way shorter than I was expecting. PSG are certainly trying to get their guys rest to keep everyone healthy. Knowing that the World Cup's coming is probably a smart way to do it for Christophe Galtier. But PSG look like the best team in the world that aren't named Man City. I think from where I sit, Reims are not getting enough and only getting 1 1/4. I think I need 1.5 at least. It might get there based on the juice and how PSG gets bet. However, moving to Sunday, Montpellier hosting Monaco. Montpellier, half a goal underdog at home. I don't know that it's enough to fade Monaco right now. Monaco has been playing really well. I don't love that team, but they thrashed Nantes. And I feel like that's partly Nantes and partly Monaco. And Montpellier certainly are a team that can give up some goals. So I'm not sure a half is enough. Even at home dog getting a half is usually a lot for me. But I think in that one, I'm willing to stay on the sidelines. Clermont Foot then hosting Angers. Currently, Clermont, a quarter goal favorite at home with all the juice. Might climb to a half. At that number, I get more interested in Angers because Clermont have not gotten a lot of love from odds makers this year or the marketplace. I do like Clermont as an underdog on the road and have backed them a fair amount this year. But as a home favorite, if they climb to a half, I like Angers. Angers hosting Strasbourg. Pick them right now. 2 teams really struggling. And with 4 teams going down in Liga, I think both are looking over their shoulder big time. Strasbourg, I think, are still without a win right now. Took a bad red card early in their last match against Stade Rennais. And that was a big problem because they couldn't hang on or really stay in the match after that. I don't know what to do, but I pick them. I don't have much of a choice. Brest then hosting Lorient. Currently Brest a quarter goal favorite, and this is a huge table discrepancy where I think Lorient are in the Champions League places right now. Brest currently in the relegation spots. Big market statement here with Brest as a favorite. All the juice on Lorient right now at getting a quarter, and that certainly seems like the obvious side. The trap side is Lorient, but I believe in the Lorient offense or team in general a lot more than I believe in Brest. Lorient want to counterattack, and that's a great position to be on the road. And I think that puts their offense in the best place while making it hard for Brest to score. I do think Brest is better than when they sit in the table, but you kind of gotta can't argue with results this deep into the season now. Teams aren't playing well, and they need to be treated as such. So I like that quarter on Lorient, though it does clearly seem like an obvious play. Nice then hosting Troyes. Currently, Nice a 3-quarter goal favorite. Had to play in Europa League or Europa Conference League midweek. That's tough, but they do get Troyes, who have not been great this season. At 3/4 of a goal, I lean to Troyes. Feel much more interested at +1 if it gets there. Rennes then hosting Nantes. Currently, Rennes a 1-goal favorite with all the juice. Probably climbs to 1.25. It might not stop there. Nantes have looked awful in the last week or two. I feel like even predating the international break, things have not gone well for them in Europa League, or because they won the Coupe de France, and that's the only reason why they got there. Certainly not from a great performance in Liga last season. Rennes have been hitting their stride a little bit. I do have a future on them to win, to make a top 5 finish. I feel like that's gotten a lot better looking than it was because it looked ugly to start the season. I just don't know that Nantes are a team that really are just playing defense right now. It feels like they're really missing Kolo Muani, who moved on to Frankfurt on a free. Bad job by them. And Ludovic Blas tried to move in the offseason as well, apparently. So I feel like there's some problems at Nantes that you wouldn't really see from the outside, and it's really affecting their play. And I've been losing a ton of money betting on them this year. Lille then hosting Lens in the nightcap. Pick them right now with Lille with all the juice. Hoping that Lens move to a quarter goal underdog because I believe in them. I love their style. I love their strategy, and I love who they are. Not yet at that number yet. So I'll make a best bet for France, and then I'll go through and give an ultimate best bet, and we'll get out of here. I like Toulouse getting a goal and a quarter on Friday. Starts in a couple hours, that match. Ajaccio, not enough for me. Reims, not enough. Montpellier, I like as a home dog, but I don't like them facing Monaco with their defense. I like Auxerre getting a quarter, but would love a half. Nothing to do in the Strasbourg match. That looks like a straight down the line pick 'em right now. Brest Lorient getting that quarter is certainly feels like a trap, but I think there's a reason for it. Nice giving 3/4 of a goal to Troyes. Certainly lean to Troyes, that +1 number. I think I'm staying away from Nantes. I'm not really interested in losing more on them, and Lens are still a pick 'em. So I'll make Lorient my quarter goal underdog, my best bet for France. So to recap, best bets from the 5 top leagues. I probably should just do this way. It's hard for me to remember off the top of my head. But from the English Premier League, I like Bournemouth getting a quarter at home. I like in the Spanish La Liga, I like Real Valladolid getting a quarter at home. I like Lecce getting a goal and a half from Roma on the road in Italian Serie A. In German Bundesliga, I like Augsburg getting a quarter at home. I also like in the French Ligue 1, I like Lorient getting a quarter on the road. My best bet, ultimate best bet for this episode, I'm going to go with Lecce +1.5 at Roma. I feel like they're in a great scheduling spot to catch Roma, potentially rotating, and a big number on a team that's been really competitive in Serie A so far this season. You can follow me on Twitter, @the_Real_G Warner. Thanks if you tuned in there, or if you're on Spotify, please leave 5-star rating or review. Subscribe on YouTube, or do anything you can, and are on Apple Podcasts. Reviews, comments, all those things sort of work and get me up the area, and hopefully get me some money so I can start making it a little bit better in the background, so you're not staring at my tennis shoes. Have a good time. Good luck this weekend. Slide in the DMs if you want to. Also enjoy the baseball. There's a lot coming up.